everybody. Welcome back to Common Ground Conversations with me, Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum, and my sidekick here.
Dr. JoNeil Conley, welcome. We're glad to
Yes,
be back.
yes. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about some insights that each of us has had in recent times that we think would be very useful to hash over and share with you and see what your thoughts are on it.
Absolutely. And as we continue, you know, not in this world that we're living in, I was listening to someone who it was a teaching and went off on some of the people that I didn't quite respect, and I could feel myself just snatch up. And I had to, that was my amygdala. And I had to deliberately say, because part of me was like, damn it, I'm never going to watch this person again. And I'm not, I
Yes,
don't think I am unlike a lot of people. But then I went, time out here. That is one tiny little portion of this training. And,
right.
and that's that person's
Yes.
opinion.
And how can we even hear messages from people we may not like or who kind of set our nerves on it? How can we take the nuggets
Yeah.
anyway?
Yeah. And again, but I think based on our time together, I knew when it was happening. I could consciously feel it and go, wait a minute. This person is entitled to her opinion. She respects and appreciates that person, not so much me. And separating that apart, she had a lot of valuable information that I needed. And
Yes.
rather
Yes.
than just and I know what might have happened is she just tune out everything.
Yeah. La 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 la. Yeah. I don't like you. I'm not going to listen to a word you have to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't serve us. That doesn't serve us. And I do feel like, and I'm sure you'll agree, right now it so serves us to take a step back and take a deep breath and hit the pause button for a bit. I had an email yesterday that I rewrote 3 times. And then I did this and I backed up and I said, Bonnie, if you have to rewrite this email 3 times, what is this telling you?
Yeah.
What is this telling you? I don't want to be doing this in the first place.
Mm.
Something about this is pushing my buttons. I'm trying to placate and be Midwest nice here instead of being me.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble with this email thing. Let's have a phone call or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been struggling with an individual who a lot of things have happened and my feelings about her leadership have degraded. Now, and so separating her who from her do and having to sort that out and to prepare for a really uncomfortable conversation that I need to have. And
Okay.
and you
Yep.
hear the word that I said I need to have. And it's interesting because I said to my husband, I said, now I could have a really easy way out because I'm going to be teaching a class at the university this summer, and I could just say, I'm too busy to do the things I've been doing for you, and that
Mhm.
would be an easy way out. And based
But
on everything that we've talked about, I can't, in my good conscience, do that because
do it
it's
that way.
cheating the other person out of her hearing and me hearing back. And I
Mhm.
think
An
that's
opportunity to really dive into the relationship. I just got back from lunch with one of my high school best friend, and we are pretty in different camps. And she said, and I totally agree, there's times when we piss each other off, but we are willing to navigate our way through it. And one of the pieces that I wanted to bring to our table
yeah, yeah,
today
yeah,
is the idea that right now everybody has this stuff so pressed against their nose
yeah.
that they can't not be reactive. We need to step back here and really take a look at. I mean, I remember an old Happy Days
Oh,
episode
yeah.
where Richie's dating this cool chick and he got really into politics because she was into politics, and it was, I forget which election. But anyway, at the end, she dumps him because she said, you know, my person lost, and I can't be with you anymore because all I'm going to remember is that my mom still thinks about Wendell Willkie every time she looks at my dad.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how much things take over our world and in that moment seem like the be all and end all. And 5 years later, sometimes if someone brings it up, it's like, oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah. 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 And I guess I question too, is everybody really responding? Or are we in a spot where we are, so we just think everybody is? I don't know
That
the
could
answer
be
to that.
valid also. That could be valid also. Yep.
I don't know the answer to that. Like we talked about in our last episode, when Kennedy was in the hospital, I didn't really give a rat's behind what was going
Hmm.
on in the rest of the world, which
Right.
and I think everybody when they pay for their gas and the groceries and those kind of things, they think about it, but not everybody is as deeply engrossed as some of us are. Trying,
Right. Right. And I think there's an interesting piece in there too that everybody's experience of this is not the same.
yeah.
And that there are people, like I was thinking about that on my trip back when I was paying attention at the gas stations how much it
Yeah,
was, and I
yeah,
picked accordingly.
yeah,
But I remember thinking, I have privilege. Regardless of how much this gas costs,
yeah.
I can still pay for it. There
Hmm.
are people who cannot, and
Yes.
there are people who are going to be far more heavily impacted. I'm offended by some things, but there are people who are going to be far more heavily
Yeah,
impacted
yeah,
than I'm going to be.
yeah, yeah. And it's interesting, healthcare. When we were looking at some of these bills, I had surgery in October and I was kept waiting to get a bill and all this sort of stuff. So my technologically savvy daughter said, "Okay, mom, here's where you go in the my chart to find it." And it was $64,000 for 2 days and a
Right.
surgery. And I'm thinking, I owed zero kind of a thing. And I thought, and with Kennedy, it's over $150,000. And we're blessed, but not everybody. And
No,
I
no,
really want to have that compassion and that
right,
that sense of, oh my gosh, I'm like you. I could pay for the gas. I could pay for the, I had
right.
to, but not,
And it's one thing for us to be grateful that we can, but it's also another thing for us to be cognizant of those who can't and working
yes.
to level the playing field
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Level the playing field. This is not okay that, and I have had in the past many clients who've gone without medications, including insulin
Yes.
that they needed
Hmm.
because of the cost.
Yeah.
They simply could not afford it.
Yeah. And the people who would cut days, cut their medicines in half and only do so much.
Hoard,
And
hoard, hoard, hoard.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a young man here in Appleton, there's actually a lawsuit against one of the local pharmacies because he, 20 something, went in to pick up his medication for diabetes and they explained to him that the cost had quadrupled.
Ugh.
And so they didn't offer him any other alternatives
Ah,
and he left and a couple days later
guys
he died.
died. Yeah.
He died and the family is suing the pharmacy.
Yeah. And I know we kind of have diverted from our tangent from our original, but I think all of this plays into the whole picture,
Right.
and and trying not to just compartmentalize these pieces of it and say
Right.
right, wrong, yes, no, Democrat, Republican, all of those things. We're looking at that humanistic view
Yes.
of
And
things.
and maybe also a view of, is this working? Is this truly working? And what constitutes it working or it not working? How do we evaluate these things?
Oh,
Because different people have different benchmarks.
yes, all the things, not just
Yes,
price and all that. Pardon me for having a text come in while we're on our little Zoom. I thought I
I
put it
totally
on
get it.
do not
S-
disturb, but
So
um,
one of my other things that I
yeah,
brought out of my 4 day sabbatical,
yes, that is so cool. I want to go to that place. I want to
it
go
was
there.
wonderful. I'm actually thinking that maybe this autumn I will do a women's retreat there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It is just phenomenal. But one of the things that I came away with two main themes that I'm intending to keep
Hmm.
active moving forward. I've stepped back into my life now. It's easy to relapse back into
Oh,
old, not so great
for
behavior.
sure, for
Okay,
sure.
how fast can I turn? How many things can I get done? Slow to the pace of Mother Earth.
Yeah, I heard you say that. Yes.
Slow to the pace of Mother Earth. And then there's times when I ask myself, okay, so what is the pace of Mother Earth? Well, then I need to listen with my intuitive ears so that I know what is the pace of Mother Earth.
Yeah.
I feel like there's going to, and this isn't appropriate verbiage, but I feel like we're going to have massive numbers of people again opting out
Hmm.
of life as it is.
That makes sense. That makes
And
sense.
we have a lot of that. 40 somethings and 50 somethings retiring. I watched this amazing video yesterday, and she was talking about we need a new word for it. Retirement, it used to be 65, you retire, you're done. Now we're opening up a new chapter. I'm retired at 40. What's
Right.
my new chapter?
Right. Right. I say that about me and at my age.
Absolutely.
Are you retired? No, I'm still doing stuff. I'm just not
A
working
lot
in
of
this
stuff.
this 9 to 5 kind of thing. Yeah.
And far more willing, I think, to ask ourselves, is what I'm doing what I want to be doing? Is this really truly feeding my soul? Is this me offering the world the best I have to give?
And I'm a bit older than you, but if you go back to the 60s, wasn't that what was being said then? With the quote unquote hippies and that generation and, off the grid and all of that piece of it. I mean, and is that pendulum we talked about last time, swinging and doing?
And again, going back to that idea of perspective, if we look with a much broader lens, if we look over the course of since the beginning of time, our little 80, 90
Oh,
years
yeah,
here is a
yeah,
flash in the pan.
yeah, yeah.
But again, I go back to be heartened, folks, be heartened.
Yes.
Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It simply
Right.
moves into, through, and out of form.
Right.
So it's every cell in your being has been in a being before.
Before. Agreed.
Right.
Agreed. So
So we don't really die.
going back
Yeah.
to this pace of Mother Earth, what does that exactly mean in real life?
What I would say it's going to mean to each person who chooses to heed that call will be different.
Hmm.
For some, it may mean I'm going to make stuff up here. I'm quitting my job and I'm buying a farmette and I'm raising organic vegetables and I'm going to follow the seasons.
Yeah.
For someone else, it might be I have retired from my job and I'm going to stand. So I had a friend who did this. She wrote a book about this. Stand at the curb every day with my little tennies on, waiting for my feet to tell me which way I'm going to walk.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
A following, a listening within, a listening to, okay, ooh, it's moving from spring to summer now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Even being aware of that. How many people come out of their house, hop in their car, drive to work, go in, they never experience even a breath of outside air.
Right, right. Air conditioned to air conditioned to. Now, the people in Arizona, let's let them go from their air conditioned house to their air conditioned.
Although there are other people who revel in the heat
Yeah,
also.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know how we can slow it down.
I think one thing is by pacing our language slower.
You said that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I get going and I'm talking really fast and at the end of the commercials where they have all those disclaimers and
Yes.
they say it like 80,000 miles an hour, I'm
Yeah.
always amazed, first of all, that they can do it without tripping over their tongue. But imagine that, but we're doing it in reverse. So we're
Yeah.
going to a little bit slower pace. Those of you who hear us go to a little bit slower, how many of you feel irritated? Like, okay, pick up the pace. Come on. This isn't usually how you talk. Let's speed this up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's we've habituated to a way of communicating. And I'm going to make the case that when we're communicating that fast, we're missing a lot of nuance.
Mm-hmm. 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 And that's one of the things in conflict to do is to really
Slow it down.
and because again, we're talking the amygdala when you're in conflict or like when I was listening to that teacher and like my amygdala and I couldn't say amygdala don't do that. It did it, but an awareness that I had some control of the response, not the reaction, the response. And to bring that down. It's this is funny too about different people. I was listening to there's an excellent video out there with Simon Sinek about friendships and AI and all this sort of stuff. And it's a 2 hour long. And I sent it to my husband. I said, just listen to it on double speed. I go like I do. He goes, I can't do that. I
Right.
go, what? Yeah. And that's
And have you ever had someone say to you, I can't listen as fast as you're
oh,
talking?
100 times, 100 times. Yeah.
That's a warning bell right there. Okay, so let's pace it a little slower. And I find that I'm less tolerant of that rapid fire stuff
Mm-hmm.
anymore. I used to
Mm-hmm.
be that rapid fire. Not anymore. Not anymore. And there's value to slowing it down.
Mm-hmm.
Like this morning on my coffee group, someone said something, and because we had paced slower, we all caught it.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the past, that would have gone right past. And maybe after the fact, one of us would have said, wait a minute, did she say that?
Yeah.
Text, text, text. Did you
Yeah.
say blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
We could catch it in the moment because we had slowed things down
Hmm.
enough.
Well, and I think bringing this back to our original conversation of this difference of political and all that piece of it, and we've said this a bunch of times, seek first to understand. And if you're already always yapping, there's no space
Yes.
to understand.
Yeah. And if you really want to feel into how much of the conversation am I dominating,
Oh,
hold a pen while you talk. When the other person
man.
talks, you hand them the
Yeah.
pen. So just even just pay, wait a minute, I've been hanging on to this thing for a while. Time to hand it off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Make it
Absolutely.
visible. Make it visible.
So you had one thing you mentioned one thing you brought back for your treat. Wasn't there another one? Wasn't there
Yes, there
two?
was. The second one is, and this one I've had a lot of people go, huh? But then as they think about it, it kind of no need to look for answers. Just live the questions.
Hmm.
I was like, huh? But it's an eloquent way of finding your path. When you're scrabbling along, there's got to be an answer here some way. I'll AI it, I'll figure this out, you're trying to push the noodle uphill. You're rushing the process.
Hmm.
You're going against the flow. If the answer hasn't emerged yet, it ain't time,
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. You and that's my husband. He is just so good at that. I'm not that good. I mean, I'm learning. And that was kind of what this Simon Sinek talked the other day when he said, it's not he was downplaying AI because it takes you out of the journey. And he said, it's not that I have written these books. It said, I went on the painstaking journey to put that
Yes.
in a logical, thoughtful process. And he goes, it's not the book, it's the journey. And that's exactly
Yes.
what you were just saying is that if we're so
Yes.
focused on the end game, we lose all the
Right.
things along the way.
So think about that. Think about the Harry Potter books. If it had been the first page and the last page,
Hmm.
how satisfied would you be?
Oh, not,
No. No,
not.
it's the story. It's the whole journey. And for many people, as people get to the end of life, if you ask them, what were the most important things that happened in your life?
Hmm.
Oftentimes, they're going to pick some pretty gnarly stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what taught them the most.
right. And it's always easier in the rear view mirror to see and we lose the moments in the now. And I do think that's something that I have become painfully aware of. As the toilet paper roll is a lot smaller than it was in the beginning, but just gardening. You're going to talk about Mother
Mhm.
Earth. Me and Mother Earth, when I garden, we are like the best friends.
Yeah, get dirt under your fingernails.
and my toenails and the whole nine yards. And I also, I think I've shared this before, is that I believe Mother Earth will absorb some of our and chopping and this and that. And thank you, Mother Earth, for taking that from me, that I don't have to carry it anymore.
Well, and Rebecca Campbell poses this question in one of the chapters in her book. She says, Mother Earth is going to make it. Humans, perhaps not.
Perhaps not. Yeah.
And if not the humans, Mother Earth is going to be, unfortunately, probably better for it.
Hmm. But going back to that, being aware of what, how did you say it about the rhythm of Mother Nature? How did you
Oh,
word
yeah.
it?
Let's see. Pace of
Pace,
Mother Earth. The
the
pace of
pace,
Mother Earth.
the pace of
Yes.
Mother Earth.
And when we match that, I want you to notice that when you match the pace of Mother Earth, you feel a sense of well-being.
Hmm.
So it ain't about being on vacation. It ain't about sitting in that lawn chair with the pina colada. It's about you're now starting to match the pace of Mother Earth.
Yeah. So how do we do that every day? What are some practices?
I think anybody can take a moment and look out a window. Step out on the porch. If you're on the 18th floor, step out on your balcony. Be present for the breeze. And if what you notice is exhaust fumes,
Yeah.
maybe schedule some time away from home.
Yeah. 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 And I
Be present. Be out in it. Go for a walk in the rain.
and I feel blessed. I mean, I've got chipmunks and squirrels and birds and babies and this and that right in my backyard, and I live more rural. Now, what would a city dweller do?
Most cities have parks.
Yeah.
Go to the park. Many cities have bodies of water nearby. Like in my town, there's a river that runs right through the middle of town.
Hmm.
Go sit by the water.
Yeah.
Go sit by moving water.
Yeah.
There's an energetic aura
Hmm.
around moving water. Be present for the water.
Yeah.
You know, go out at night. Look
Yes.
at the sky.
Yeah.
If you can't see stars, too much light pollution.
Yeah. For
Begin
sure.
to make some of these
Yeah.
these changes. So part of this was also having several people in my life have loved ones get terminal diagnoses
Yeah.
real
Mm.
recently.
Mm.
And so thinking to myself, if I were to get that, would I be happy with what I've just spent my
Ah.
last
Oh, I
weeks, months,
know.
etc. doing?
Yeah.
So right after this, I have a list about 10 miles long of stuff that I ought to be doing. I'm going to the park.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the secret is, here's the thing they don't talk about. This I actually read in my one of my Strong Towns books. The value of pushing for a 4-day work week, it offers so many gifts. First of all, pay people the same thing you would pay them for the 5-day work week. Still pay them the same. Productivity is likely to increase.
Hmm.
And you're saving money because you've got the building shut down for an extra day.
Hmm.
We're helping Mother Earth because we're not all commuting back and forth. How long did it take before the air started clearing
Oh, during
with
COVID.
COVID?
Yeah. Yeah.
In
That
the
was
beginning, when we were all afraid and we were all staying home, it did not take long. I can't remember what
I
city it was where they finally saw the mountain
like
that had been,
China. Wasn't it
yeah,
China
some
somewhere? Yeah.
or Kilimanjaro. I don't even know, but
Yeah.
yes, but it did not take that long.
Yeah.
Now, some people who will say, well, if she can fix herself that fast, we don't really need to be worrying about what we're doing right now, do we? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, 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 that doesn't hold water.
Yeah. Yeah. My concern was you give people that 4-day work week and they'd get a second job.
How unfortunate.
Yes, yes.
How
Because I think
unfortunate.
about nurses, and I absolutely despise 12-hour shifts for nurses. I think they are the awfulest, mind-killing tragedy that ever. People go, "Well, I only work 3 days a week, but then you take 3 days to recover." Where
Right.
8 hours, you come home, you've got some time with your all the
And by
again.
the time we get to hour 12, how
Yeah,
functional are you?
no, no, absolutely.
Right.
But I'm telling you what, they cling to that like it's the ugh.
And so I have a client who's a physician who's out on medical leave now for burnout.
Yes.
And do you know that there's actually a program that she's attending that is for physicians with burnout?
Yeah, oh, yes.
And we've
Yes.
talked about
Mhm.
um the zeitgeist of medical school.
Oh,
And it was no different than the PhD programs. And, it's how long can you go without peeing?
uh-huh.
How long can you go without eating anything?
Right.
How long how many
Oh,
days in a row can you work?
yeah.
All the things. It's very masochistic.
Oh, when
Very
I was in
masochistic.
early in practice, nurses or residents were all the way around. They actually put regulations in there so they could sleep. That they would do some of that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no,
It's
that is
barbarian.
not, I mean, and when we think about it, on a logical level. It's like, how stupid
Mhm.
is this? We're putting our physical well-being in the hands of someone who is totally sleep deprived.
And that's nurses too, nurses and physician. I'm gonna go with that.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna go with that.
Absolutely.
So how do we pull all of these disparate thoughts that we just put out here into a package for our listeners?
I think a piece of it is um, having a willingness, I'm going to use a word here, flexibility to our thought process
Hmm.
about anything. As little kids, we often would use things in ways that they weren't intended to be used
Yeah.
because we could see beyond just what we were told it was for,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
We were creative with things. As we get older, we get in the box of, nope, this is what it's used for.
Right.
This is how we do it. Let's go back to what else could we do differently here? How could we, I think about one of the jobs that my sister had at some point in the past where this large company put in a sleep room.
Yeah.
If someone was exhausted, they went to the sleep room. They had a
Hmm.
refrigerator that was stocked with good, healthy food. What are some of the things that we can do to lay the groundwork for people to be healthier, people to be taking better care of themselves, people to be questioning the status quo
Oh,
as a way to help us evolve, innovate, grow?
well, and as a full stop, that's my objection to this leader that I'm having the struggle with. Very cut, dry, do not. And it goes back to this key principle that you and I, if you don't see people as people, then they're objects and you
Yeah.
can hurt them.
Yes, yes. And so that goes back to some of the stuff we've talked about too with regard to the the political stuff and the
Mhm.
name calling
Yeah.
that goes on.
Yeah.
And whenever you denigrate someone by calling them a name, you've opened the door for your willingness to be even more harmful to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, for
What do
sure.
we need to do to see the sacredness of all, the
Yeah.
divine in everybody?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everybody.
Every everybody.
You don't get to put anybody over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can, people are going to go, yeah, the two of them can sit in their chairs and have these conversations. But if it was in real life, well, we are living real lives. We are,
Yes. And we do practice what we preach. We
yeah,
walk our talk.
yeah.
Is it always easy? No.
Oh,
Like there was one recently where someone took a cheap shot at me on a social media
sure.
platform. I don't take that stuff down. I leave it there.
Oh, do you? Yeah,
And then I replied with, I'm fine with you sharing your opinion. You do not get to name call. Basically, here are the rules
sure.
for playing in my sandbox,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes someone can make the adjustment and have a decent conversation.
Yes, yes,
Oftentimes they
sure.
disappear.
And I've had that on TikTok where I'd say something and they would go off. And this one, I remember one in particular where she really just went off on me. And I pulled the conversation into a more private, and she went, "Oh, is that really what you were trying to say?" Yes. So there is that opportunity as well. But again, when you're behind a screen, you're a
It's
thing.
easy to be Yeah.
you're a thing.
And I recall that from someone taking a cheap shot at a news anchor and her being on air and addressing it.
Yeah,
You called me fat and
I've seen those. Yeah.
I've got daughters. I don't want that kind of language around them yet. And she just addressed it. And I'm like, yay, you.
Yeah, and this goes back to something we also said too, and my work with bullying is that when people say that thing, it's how it makes you feel about you, and that's where that getting to that place where she could then say, you know what, here's me. This is how I felt about
Yeah.
this. And
Yeah.
address it versus just making like, oh my God, I'm bad. And it also, who are these people saying these things? They don't,
Right.
you
And
know.
yes, and sometimes to say to that person, I'm wondering if you did mean to hurt my
Oh, what?
feelings with that.
That's actually one of the squares on the meanness matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you have to either own it, yeah, I wanted to make you feel like crap,
yeah.
or start your back pedal.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So in this world we're faced right now, as we come to our closure, and thank you again for the folks who stayed with us this time. We were all through the whole thing. Is that our mission, our goal is just to help people live every day in joy and peace in the midst of all the things that are going on in our world. And still, say your sentence in the midst of the storm.
At the center of life's storms, I stand serene.
That's That's it. That's it. Well, thank you again, folks, for being with us.
Yes, we appreciate you
Yeah,
chewing on this and maybe sharing it with someone else and having a conversation. The more
yeah.
conversations we have going on about this stuff, the better.
And let us know. Let it put some quote comments in the feed, and we'll certainly get back to it. We get back
Absolutely
to
so.
you. All right.
Bye.